r/ask Reddit. What industry do you want to see fold and never come back? Robocalls can duck off for good. Yeah, it's been pretty peaceful since COVID. I guess the ones operating them are also at home. The robocalls have stopped for me, but I am suddenly getting spam robo texts. Before the pandemic, I'd gotten maybe 2 or 3 total in my life. I've gotten 7 in the past 3 days. MLMs and children's beauty pageants. Oh hun, it's not a pyramid scheme. Come join us all at Pharaoh Toomink. You forgot the excessive amount of images. With this economy, there will be more MLMs due to unemployment. People will be hungry for work and will fall for the ad saying being your own boss. For-profit prisons. It's like everything a prison shouldn't stand for. There is nothing more dystopian than for-profit prisons. Riverlink was put in charge of collecting tolls from cars going over the Ohio River between Kentucky and Indiana. If you don't have a pass, they mail you your bill, except they never do. I've heard countless people say it happened to them, and it happened to me twice. So one day you get a final notice bill with a fat late fee attached to it, and you can't contest it. I've tried. I don't know how they're allowed to operate like this, but they need to duck all the way off. For more fun, I love getting toll bills from places I've never traveled to with pictures of either blurry darkness or very clearly not my car attached. I got one of those a few years ago. They decided to drop it after I pointed out that I had retagged my car in another state 2 years before the date on the photo with what was claimed to be my old plate. Sounds like they were definitely fishing for people who weren't paying attention. Scientology. 1000%. Any religious organization that is a facade to make its administrators/founders wealthy. Lots of mega churches are set up specifically for this purpose, some of whom are defying COVID-19 warnings on gatherings since they going want the gravy train interrupted. Payday loans. Getting rid of payday loans is only a good thing if there's a better solution in place. Yes, they're horrible and predatory, and they're meeting a real need that no one else is willing to meet. I got screwed over by them myself when I was younger, but it was a choice between paying exorbitant interest on the one hand, or being homeless and hungry with my then infant daughter on the other. They're a symptom, not the disease. I used to work for a company that was doing some research, including on a payday loan company, and I went in very negative. Still am, but I think based on what I knew of them, I always presumed the issue to be that they just didn't make it clear to folks the actually interest rates and risk. Almost every single customer did, with several willing to point out how ignorant it was of me to presume the issue was education. Almost everyone I talked to as a customer basically said, I know the risk, but when your choice is between eating or being in debt, the debt doesn't really seem like anything. It creates a vicious cycle specifically targeted to those already living on the edge of poverty. I used to work for one, and you'd be surprised how many middle class people use them. The median annual salary for clients was $80,000. A lot of these people were of the mindset I wanna go to Mexico on vacation but my Porsche payment is due. I'll get a payday loan not realizing how hard it is to pay it back. It's really sad too because those people end up defaulting too. Healing crystals and essential oils as a health remedy. Commercial dog breeding aka puppy mills. Any pet mills in general. I used to breed dogs until I found out they can do that themselves. Pharmaceutical ads. Not exactly an industry, but I'll never understand why they advertise these drugs for various conditions on TV when your doctors would recommend these drugs themselves if they deemed them appropriate. Could cause loss of hair, stomach ulcers, skin cancer, sleep apnea, mental distress, breast enlargement, irreversible dark skin patches, vomiting, loss of sight, or death. But I have a backache. And let's not forget now, the painfully obvious: do not take this medication if you are allergic to this medication. Human trafficking. I think everyone who isn't currently trafficking humans is against human trafficking. Human trafficking is much more common than you may think. I would bet that most people have supported a business that participates in human trafficking without even knowing it. 2 nail salons and a Chinese restaurant in my area were nailed for human trafficking recently. Timeshares. Not so much an industry, but a methodology. I hate the idea of a product as a service. I don't want to lease stuff. I want it to do whatever the hell I want to with it. Looking at you, Adobe Suite. The hidden benefits to software subscriptions is it gives customers no reason to stay on an old version, making collaboration much easier. That said, Adobe only does it because they've cornered a market and now they want to rake in cash. I don't have time to scroll through this many comments, so pardon me if it's been said. The funeral industry can duck right off. The sheer cost of what they charge for everything and all their little add-ons and hidden fees and high pressure tactics when people are at their most vulnerable should be illegal. I'm seeing more and more people going back to wakes or celebrations of life at home or other venues. Wife and I have already put those instructions into our wills and opted for cremation. We want to bequeath our money to people and charities we care about, not line the pockets of those greedy ducks. There is a YouTuber called Ask Mortician, and she goes into detail in several videos about different methods you can use to save money and what predatory behaviors to watch out for, as well as telling you what your rights are. Because many funeral directors will say by law you have to embalm or by law you have to do this or that, and it's not true. Agreed. I've never understood why people pay thousands of dollars to preserve and store a rotting corpse. Both my husband and I wish to be cremated when the time comes. Instagram influencers. A bunch of entitled brats getting paid to live experiences that others save their whole lives to do just once. If it makes you feel better, most of them are fake. Completely manufactured. They use rental cars or harass rich people so they get selfies of themselves in front of their mansions and shit. Even the ones who become successful will lose relevancy pretty quick, and most of their photos are airbrushed, filtered, etc. Political advertising. They are one-sided at best, and straight up lies at worst. What's your alternative? Duels. Child beauty pageants. Frank's little beauties are the lone exception. Do not diddle kids. It's no good diddling kids. Please. That and copyright laws. So many IPs should have entered the public domain decades ago, but companies like Disney lobbied to extend the copyright. The fashion industry, who is producing a shitton of stuff that is meant to be worn for a few months and then thrown away. Just let it die and all those fashionistas can go along. If I remember correctly, worldwide clothes industry is about 1/10 of all CO2 emission we are causing. So yes, just let it die and rebuild in a more reasonable manner. It's not just fashionistas buying this stuff. Most people I know who don't care about what they wear just buy whatever is cheap at Target. Plenty of people into fashion are into buying ethically and sustainably as well. Totally agree that I think worldwide consumption needs to be reduced, and coronavirus is probably forcing a lot of us to examine just how much we consume. I'd love to see fast fashion die, and the extreme exploitation that goes along with it. I just don't like this idea that being into fashion equals being vapid or materialistic. I'm sure that's not what you meant to say, but just felt the need to point that out. Mega churches and Joel Osteen specifically. What actually is the deal with him? I wasn't really raised very religious, so it just wasn't something I ever paid much attention to. I just know my aunt would listen to him in the morning when she had satellite radio, and my parents thought that was really weird. Televangelists are weird people, but what is wrong with Joel Osteen in particular? He's a televangelist worth at least $40 million. He also has never been poor and was born with a silver spoon. He has no idea what low-income people go through, yet encourages donations and tithing towards him and his church. He preaches on the prosperity gospel idea, which means God is responsible for success and financial prosperity. Poverty and sickness are a curse remedied through faith, which is highly connected to donating to religious causes. So him and his church. Basically, if you're poor, it's your fault for not being faithful and you need to tithe more to help your situation. He tells people to donate even at the expense of themselves and their families. People have gone into debt to give to him and he doesn't discourage it. He says he doesn't do prosperity gospel connected to money. That is a lie. He owns a 10,017,000 square foot mansion and a private jet. His church is one of the biggest in the USA, and the upkeep and multimillion-dollar renovations are funded by his followers, majority of whom are not wealthy. One criticism I saw is he makes his religion about people and what they've done, instead of about God, like the way faith religion is supposed to work. The Hurricane Harvey incident was the worst. His church and preachings have 52,000 attendees a week. The church has like 16,000 seats and is over 600,000 square feet with a huge stadium. Now imagine how helpful that would have been for people displaced by the hurricane. Yet he refused to open it up and even lied that it was impacted and flooded. There's picture proof it was perfectly fine. Wedding industry. I'm not saying that photographers shouldn't get paid for what they do or that florists should stop growing flowers, but it has gotten so expensive, and it has very little to do with inflation. Expectations are so high. Everyone is trying to outdo each other, and paying for one little thing is excruciating when you can get the same thing for a birthday party for significantly less. As someone who works in an occasionally wedding adjacent industry, music, I can explain why things are more expensive for weddings. Time and detail. For the photographer, they go to the child's birthday party to do photos, and that entails showing up when the party is starting, staying for the length of the party 3 hours, and then having a few weeks to get the editing done, and generally will be left to do their thing and take the photos they think will work best. Compare that to a wedding, where the photographer shows up 2 hours before to do preparation shots, shoots the wedding itself, another 2 hours, does post-wedding staged shoots of the bridal party and groomsmen, another 2 hours, and then photos at the reception, another 3 hours. After this, there will be a rush on editing a percentage of these photos so the bridal party will be able to share them within a day or two, and then the rest will be required within the next 10 or so days. Plus you are dealing with a greater attention to detail and bridezillous groomzillous mother of the brides that think they know better than you and want what they want. But if it doesn't look as good as what they imagined it would be, it's your fault, not theirs. That's why the money is so much greater for weddings. Reality TV. Not sure if it's an industry. I get it, but also, just don't watch it. I have a friend who helps with construction for reality shows, and their apartment is speckled with leftover furniture and props from shows. Definitely non-essential though. They were laid off immediately. Homeopathy. True story. There was a girl I had a big crush on from when I was in college. Didn't see her for about 15 years and finally ran into her again. I asked her what she did for a living and she told me she was a doctor. I had worked doing research in a hospital for a while, so I asked her where she worked and her specialty, etc. With a straight face she said homeopathy. At that moment, I knew I didn't have a crush on her anymore. Cruises. The stupid part is that the cruise industry could be better. Ships don't have to be major polluters. They can be built to better standards with newer technologies. Cruise companies don't have to avoid taxes. They employ thousands of people and bring people to island countries that wouldn't have much of an economy without tourism. Chinese wet markets. This better include new age Chinese medicine, ivory carving, and selling live animals trapped in keyrings. This won't be popular, but selling helium for party balloons. The United States made an effort to stockpile helium for necessary industrial purposes, and then they started selling it as a gag for parties when there is a finite amount and a real need. We don't need balloons as much as we need to keep our helium here on Earth and not outgassing to space. Diamonds. Let's hope synthetic diamonds crush this market. Health insurance. They are just middlemen controlling access to doctors and prescriptions. In America, we don't want the government deciding who does and doesn't get medical care. We want large corporations that exist solely to further internal profits deciding who does and doesn't get medical care. Online casinos. They ruin lives and annoy the rest of us with commercials. J.G. Wentworth. 877 cash now. Predatory mother duckers. If you work for J.G. Wentworth, congratulations. You are a huge piece of shit. Rent to own stores, errands, rent a center. The meat industry. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.